Doctors across India are continuing their protests after the horrific rape and murder of a young doctor in Kolkata. Despite appeals from the Chief Justice, doctors are looking for systemic changes, institutional changes, so that what we saw in Kolkata never repeats again. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. For the last many days, we have been reporting on the doctors' protests across India with a special focus on Kolkata, where a young doctor was raped and murdered at her place of work, at her medical college, the RG Kar Medical College. We have now seen the Supreme Court make an intervention, and that intervention has been all thanks to the brave protests by young doctors, in particular, on the streets of India from Delhi to Kolkata. But even as the Chief Justice appeals to the doctors, saying, "We've got this, call off your protest," doctors' associations have decided to carry on with their protest because they say, "We want fundamental, institutional, deep changes." One of the things that so many doctors have told me over the last few days that I've been reporting on the Kolkata horror is, how many of you really understand what we go through? Do you understand that India could lose some of its finest brains if this carries on to other countries? Do any of us understand that even in families where generations have actually been in medicine, that could change and younger people may no longer want to come into this profession? So, on this program today, we decided to introduce to you this issue purely from a doctor's perspective, to bring you face to face with three different doctors and hear from them in their own words what they want us in the non medical world to understand about their lives. First, I want to welcome to the program Dr. Nabanita Chatterjee. She's a laparoscopic surgeon and she's been a big part of the protests over the last many days. Welcome to the program. Then I want to welcome Dr. Sabharwal. Dr. Vipender Sabharwal comes actually from a family which in 104 years has given India 150 doctors. Each member of his family has been a doctor. But what is this family that has given 150 nearly doctors to India thinking and feeling today? Will that generational torch be carried on, or is there cynicism today? We'll find out from him in just a moment. And also, adding a young new voice, a first generation doctor to this conversation is Dr. Leah Bhaumik. She's a junior resident, and many of these protests have been led by young people. So we thought it was also important to have their perspective. I'll start with you, Dr. Sabharwal. Your story and the story of your family has often been told because it's such an incredible story. And I want to actually show just a few photographs of your family, if we can play those now. This is an incredible family, the Sabharwal family. The Sabharwal family, as I said, since 1919 has been in the field of medicine. It has given us 150 doctors nearly in 104 years. This is an incredible story. Each member of this family uh, has actually been in medicine. So as I said, Dr. Sabharwal's family has produced 150 doctors in 104 years. So the question really, as we try and understand doctors better, to you, Dr. Sabharwal, and we'll hear more about your family later, is how are you feeling today as coming from a family that for generations has been in medicine? Do you still want your children to be in medicine, their children to be in medicine? Will this legacy carry on? Or are you feeling disillusioned after what's happened in Kolkata and what continues to happen across the country where doctors and healthcare workers feel vulnerable? Dr. Sabharwal.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me on the show. I think, in very short, if you ask me in just few words, I'll say from being able to becoming miserable. That is what the feeling is today. I'm really blessed to be born in a family with 150 doctors, and I'm the fourth generation, and my children are the fifth generation, and they are studying in Delhi Medical College. And when I used to think they are very able and they have cracked NEET and come to Delhi, and now the feeling, if I start from my children, is really miserable. My daughter, who's already studying in one of the best institute in India, just told me on the same night that I've got into this because I just wanted to carry on the torch. And as our motto is of Jivan is that service to sick is worship of God, and that's what we've been doing. And her answer and question was in the same statement. She said, is it right that I got into this profession? And then the second question was, if I'm already here, then it's better to leave the country. And that was the day that she started thinking of going to US. We
Hmm.
are only thinking and only contemplating about the physical effects right now, but I would really like to tell the mental part or the emotional part right now. A family which never even thought of any other profession, and in which the grandparents, the great grandparents used to write in their will that anybody who
Yeah.
would not become a doctor would be, will have to just walk out of the family or the hospital. That strong was the feeling. And now the
Hmm.
feeling has totally changed after this, and I think this is very alarming.
So, Dr. Sabharwal, when you say that you've gone from being able to being miserable, that's very distressing to hear. And you're saying your daughter has entered the field of medicine, but today she's considering leaving India, right? What what has disturbed her the most? One, she's a woman. She must have very deep feelings on about what's happened in Kolkata. Two, she's young. I think what we were willing to take and battle through, young people are saying, why should we fight these fights? Tell us a little
Absolutely.
bit about that.
See,
Yeah.
first, I think the woman part comes very, very first, because my grandmother, my mother, my wife, and my daughter, four medicos
Yeah.
ladies whom I have been, getting the love and care from. And now that you must have seen that slogan कि काश मैं लड़का होती तो मैं जिंदा होती. Things like that, or saying that if we can't save them, then just grave them. Saying that we should change the law, we should not let them go for the duties in the night, we should not let them be out. Again, that shaming and blaming has started, and
Yeah.
nobody is actually asking the females or the women power, I would say, of this in country, that what they feel, and like how their decisions are changing just by few incidences, and they're not stopping. And what the fraternity is really asking is for some legislation, just not because they want that some laws should come for their comfort, but for the physical and the mental comfort of the coming generation, which I'm directly seeing in my family. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, when you say that, are we now saying if we can't save them, should we grave them? You're actually talking about this bizarre. I personally think it's a bizarre proposal from the Mamata Banerjee government that women doctors should avoid the night shift, that they should have different working hours from men. Dr. Nabanita Chatterjee, that is not what women professionals are looking for. Now, you are somebody who, your husband is a doctor, but I think you were sharing with me that you don't know if this is something that is going to pass on to the next generation in your family. First, let's talk about how you're feeling today as a woman. First you see a woman getting raped and killed at her place of work. Then you see a kind of cover up. You see an attempt to protect the principal on whose watch this happened. All of this happens, and then you see a bizarre proposal suggesting that women should avoid the night shifts. I'm sure you've done plenty of night shifts in your time. I'm sure you've pulled the same shifts as the men in your profession. How are you feeling today, Dr. Nabanita Chatterjee, and what do you think people are not getting? What do you think people don't understand about the medical profession? Nabanita.
Thank you, Barkha, for allowing me to speak in your channel. I am extremely outraged as a doctor, as a woman. And yes, as a surgeon, in my many years of residency, I have done exactly what the other men have done, including pulling the stretchers of patients, gunshot injuries, stab injuries
Yeah.
in the middle of the night, walking through corridors, doing night shifts, day after day, night after night, 36 hours, 48 hours. And this Mamata Banerjee's statement is absolutely appalling, because that's not where we are going to go back. When we did that 30 years back, why women of today cannot do it? Because we are not providing them a safe place to work. That's why. I mean, in our profession as doctors, there is so much of vandalism in the hospitals, whether it's nursing homes, whether it's state hospitals, whether it's smaller district hospitals. The junior doctors who are in the front, they are the in the forefront in all this. They are getting the brunt of people's anger when patients can't be saved, when actual problem is the apathy of the administrators, the governments not providing adequate infrastructure, when a patient coming angrily, when a patient's relatives are angry because the patient is dying and the infrastructure is not there to save them, then whom do they blame? They blame the junior doctor right there. They slap, they hit, they vandalize. So this problem, which has come with with this violence against doctors, it is carrying the next generation of bright, meritorious students to become doctors. And those who are already in this profession, they are finding the best way to run away from this country if they can. And those who can't are absolutely going to be at the mercy of the people and the administration and the state governments. So there has to be change. And as a woman doctor, the if men are being manhandled, then you can well imagine what is happening to the women. Because in any case, in our country, patriarchy, misogyny is so much all pervasive in the society
Yeah.
that women are always going to face it even more. So if men are fighting, say, a X amount of problem, for women it's 10x, because in any profession, women will always be pushed to the corner. So that is another battle inside being the doctor fraternity by itself. The medical professionals have an extra battle to fight.
I'm so glad that you shared how you've pulled every graveyard shift that the men have. You've carried the stretchers. You've done exactly what your male colleagues have done. But Dr. Sabharwal shared how his daughter is questioning why she came into medicine, whether she should work in India. What about your daughter? I believe you have a daughter as well. Is she a doctor? I can't hear now. Nabanita, can we unmute her? Hang on, ma'am. I can't hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes. Go
So
ahead.
my daughter very clearly said that she does not want to become a doctor. Seeing the kind of work that the doctors have to do, it is almost scary, she felt. And besides, now that I see that she's gone into an entirely different line, she's doing economics honors from Delhi University. I'm almost glad somewhere. I'm kind of glad that she doesn't have to fight this battle. But then, I'm glad for my daughter. But what about the hundreds of daughters in this country? I mean,
Yeah.
their parents, they have, that was a dream for them to have a doctor in the family. And what happens to the dream? And look at the condition of this Arjikar doctor, the only child of her parents who was brutally murdered. What happens
Yeah.
to such families? I mean, do we as a society see what we are doing to this country? I mean, it is not a doctor's battle. 80% of the medical students who are coming through NEET today, all the meritorious students, majority of them do not have doctor parents, because doctor parents hardly are pushing their children to become doctors. So it is a problem of the society at large. People coming from the middle class families of this country, they want to have their children as doctors, their daughters, their sons. And if
Yeah.
they're going to be beaten up like this, do you think this is a profession that will be chosen by the next generation of people? We'll stop having good meritorious doctors in the country. And what a sad state of affairs. Our doctors, I mean, from my medical college, Maulana Azad, 94, when I passed out as an intern, so many of my batchmates went off to USA and UK, and they're doing very well there. I'm sure they must be thinking they've kind of saved their lives from this kind of
Yeah.
situation that they're seeing in India. And while I'm very, very happy that I've stayed back in my country, and I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing, but I feel very worried for the future generation, that what
Yeah.
is it that they are staring at?
Yeah, and you mentioned the victim at the RG Core college. I also want to say that she came from a low-income household. Her parents ran a small tailoring shop. The father
Yes.
refused the compensation offered by the state. He said, "I've earned my living and made my daughter a doctor stitching. I'll continue to sew and stitch, but I won't take money from the state." And so I think it's very important to remember how much hardship parents sometimes go through to give their daughters, in particular, in education. I want to bring in Leah Bhomik. Unlike Dr. Sabharwal and Dr. Nabanita Chatterjee, she doesn't come from a family with a medical background. You're a first generation doctor, Leah, is that correct?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here. Yes, I'm a first generation doctor, and no one in my family, even in the distant family or friends and relatives, have been doctors in the past. So yeah, so
How tough was it for you to become a doctor and for your family?
well, there are many aspects about it. First is definitely the sacrifices that the parents have made throughout my life in terms of investing time, money into the
Yeah,
coachings, or yeah, those are very expensive. Then me having to let go a lot of my hobbies in order to study and devote time. And
yeah,
after becoming a doctor too, I have to continue not being able to pursue these things which would actually make me happy, because I need to invest that time into studying, and or maybe the duty hours are so much that you're so tired when you reach home you don't feel like doing anything. And just in general
So
I
when you
feel becoming,
when you hear this proposal that women doctors should have different shifts, what would you say?
that's ridiculous, that's absolutely ridiculous. I think when you
Yes.
go and talk to most of the women doctors or nurses or any female healthcare professional, they will never tell you that we are not ready to do a night shift. They will never say that. They know that it's my job, I have to go and do my thing.
Yeah.
Just give us basic security, that's all that we are asking. We are not asking any kind of extra privilege or any kind of thing that actually in the long run it will just discriminate us. Because in private sector, if a doctor, if I'm being supposed, like I'm going for an interview and another person is going, and if someone is saying ki, like, I will not hire you because you will not be able to pull off a night shift according to the government rules, then what's the
Yeah.
profit in me hiring you, right? So that's absolutely
Yeah.
ridiculous. And it's, I don't know, like what was the people who were writing the
Yeah.
rules thinking while
Can,
writing that? I have no idea.
can I ask you before I go back to Dr. Sabharwal and to Dr. Nabanita, can I ask you how you
Hmm.
feel as a young woman doctor after this horrible crime, rape and murder at the RG College?
Yeah, to be honest,
You're
whenever
you're
I
in, are you in Kolkata also?
yes, I'm from Kolkata. I'm studying in NRS Medical College. So
Okay.
when I was doing my internship, many a times I was alone in the wards. I was handling patients on my own, and there were a lot of volatile patient parties. But and even the surroundings is not the best for you. But somewhere I felt that okay, I will never have to face something of the kind that I saw in the last 10-15 days. Like rape and murder was something that in even my worst dreams I had not imagined. Like I was a first year student when in 2019 a mob attacked NRS. So I had seen the
Hmm.
kind of brutality a doctor can face, especially young doctors can face. I was aware of that. But still, even in my wildest dreams, I did not think that a doctor
Yeah.
on duty can be raped and murdered.
Yeah.
So I had crying bouts for 2 days. I think a lot of women, all my friends with whom I was talking to, they have said that they were just crying, they felt helpless. And
Yeah.
it was such a shock that,
Yeah.
like, it's
Yeah.
something that we have not thought in 100 years. It's something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Sabharwal, I want to come back to your personal story. I want all three of you to share a little bit of your personal struggle, your personal story, your personal feelings at this point, because we're really trying to understand doctors more. So let's start with your family. As I said, you come from a family that has given us how many, what is the precise count? Is it
So now
150?
we are
What is the
154 doctors. Yeah, 154.
154
Yeah,
doctors?
so I label my daughter as 153 and my son as 154. So that's the
Amazing.
story. That's the story I've been always so proud of, and we've enjoyed it, and we've always feel so blessed. So I when I was born, like if I really tell you that I've seen that those 40 years, like I'm now 50 plus, so right. So I saw those 40 years of change. When my grandparents used to practice, I used to be in the hospital. My parents, you can see in the picture also. I mean, they're
Yeah.
all, and my grandfather used to say, you have to go out also, get the best of degrees. It's not about just following the Jeevan trend. You go to, so I went to UK, did my masters. They went to US, but I was always determined to come back. That was the best part of a family. How it became 1919 and 1920. My great grandfather just heard Gandhiji and he said Swadeshi, and just stuck him, and he came back home and he told my great grandmother that all your jewelry is being sold, will not have anything, and every child from today will become an Indian doctor, and we'll have Indian treatment. And that's how it
Yeah.
started. And you imagine, okay, maybe at that time nobody used to question, but
But
then the second.
when you were young, did you ever think that you would be anything but a doctor, or it was
No.
just considered a given that everybody in your
Yeah.
family has to be a doctor?
Nobody asked me that. See, it was always my wish. So somehow they inculcated that into us by showing us all the
Yeah,
positive things, and there were a lot of positive
yeah,
at that time. And
yeah,
nobody asked me doctor. They used to ask me which specialty. So it was like you are becoming a surgeon and my
yeah.
grandfather was so straightforward. He said you may marry anybody. At 30 years back, he said you may marry a boy or a girl. I am not bothered, but it has to be a doctor. So that was the determination he had. And my children also, we never told them, we just showed them. They used to come to my see my
Yeah.
surgery on live and all that.
Yeah.
So that's how it became, it
Would
became part of.
you be heartbroken if your children were to leave medicine? Would you be
Absolutely.
heartbroken?
See, I'm really of old school thought. Actually, my generation, a lot of my friends, I've seen them, my relations outside, they have tried their level best that their children don't become. But deep inside, my wife did have this apprehension that whether, but deep inside, I knew that I hope they become doctors. And now also, I always hope that they follow this profession and do the service, whatever may come,
Yeah.
whatever may come.
Yes, so Dr. Nabanita, while most of the country has stood behind the doctors' protests, there have also been those who have sort of been critical, or how can you leave patients? We have seen doctors taking OPDs to the streets. And I know when we were talking before this program, you said a lot of people don't understand our lives. A lot of people don't understand what we go through, what vulnerability we face. Even as we were seeing the protests around Kolkata, we had a young female doctor in Mumbai attacked by a drunk patient and his relatives. In COVID, during COVID years, we have seen not just doctors come under attack. I remember covering the heartbreaking story of a doctor in Chennai who couldn't get a place to be buried, even though he had served at that time of great risk to himself, because at that time the unscientific belief was that if the body comes near, then somehow we'll also get COVID. His ambulance was pelted with stones. It was all horrible. So I want you to speak a little bit about the vulnerability of being a doctor and what you think non-doctors do not understand.
The medical profession is a very unique profession where just any 18-year-old who's coming out of school goes into various lines. One is a medicine, which is a very coveted line. And some of the most meritorious brains get into the system by a very rigorous process. Now it is NEET. In our time, it was DPMT, PMTs, whatever. But there are all meritorious students who are getting into the line. Now, most of the doctors are mentally prepared. It's going to be a tough 5 years of MBBS, and then it's going to be postgraduate, and then it's going to be more senior residency, super specializations. Everything we are prepared for. We know it's a long, drawn journey, becoming a good doctor. But what the vulnerability we are facing now, with the public being against us for everything, the doctors getting blamed, so much of litigations, so much of consumer, I mean, while the lawyers are now out of it, the doctors are not out of it. So
You need to explain this. You were telling me that the lawyers are no longer covered by the Consumer Protection Act. I mean, like the Consumer Protection Act does not apply to lawyers, but it applies to
yes,
doctors. I was
yes,
shocked to
yes,
discover that it doesn't apply to lawyers. So if you want to talk a little bit
yes.
about that.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
the thing is that now what has happened in the public domain, this image has come that the private practitioners are making a lot of money. So, therefore, we have to really make their lives difficult. So, once the patient is there, if the patient has any complication, God forbid the patient dies because the complications can lead to death, then the doctors are demonized. Now, people have to understand, the non-medical fraternity has to understand that doctors at the end of the day are not God. They do not change. They can only do their job with a lot of honesty, with sincerity, with a lot of hard work. They've put in years of studies to become what they are. And when they are trying to save patients, they're doing it with their heart and soul. But the final answer, the final, the conclusion, whether the patient is saved or not in a very difficult situation, is just not the doctors who are responsible. If people don't understand that the doctors have done their job yet couldn't save, they will understand, okay, the doctor did his or her best and therefore couldn't save the lives, and we respect that. No, but what patients are doing in a government setup, they vandalize, they slap the nurses, the doctors, they're there. In the private setup, it is litigations. So it has become a very sad story in this country. 30 years back, I'm sure the situation was, the security part must have been as bad, but somehow people did not attack us. At least we didn't face that. At least never in my 7 years of internship and residency, walking through the corridors of Maulana Azad in the dead of the night, did I ever feel threatened that somebody is going to attack me. But today, the situation seems to have changed. So there
Yeah.
is this perception that has changed over time.
Leah, Dr. Leah, when Dr. Nabanita talks about vandalism by patients, the most striking example we've seen is not by patients, but a mob of 7,000 people. And if we can just play those images of the vandalism that we saw at RG Kaur, because today now the CISF has taken over. This is on the instructions of the Supreme Court. When you saw the vandals storming RG Kaur, right? Those are only some of those images that we saw. What did you feel? What did you think as a young resident?
Yeah, I'll tell you what was happening. It was 15th of August. It was midnight. So we had gone for a protest march in our neighborhood, Seize the Midnight. I think you would have heard about it. And we were very
Yeah,
happy. I felt for the first time that in the state of West Bengal, actually the entire nation, in different parts of the nation also, everybody was together. And finally, we were fighting for justice. Cut to, I come to home and I open my WhatsApp and I see so many messages saying that Ajikar is under attack. And
yeah,
it literally, I was paralyzed for a second because I was thinking my friends are there. Then I immediately texted my friend, like, are you safe, are you okay? So they said that we have she's a girl, by the way, I'm talking about a female friend of mine. She's
yeah,
living in the ladies hostel. She was there. She said that yes, we are at the moment fine, but the ER has been is in shambles. They have vandalized the entire ENT department, and every part of the boys' hostel was under attack. The girls' hostel was under attack. A lot of the wards were also under attack. We have just locked ourselves in the rooms, and we are very scared for our lives. We have just taken up whatever kind of weapon we could find. Even it was like we were discussing in our class groups also. We were thinking that okay, maybe other colleges may as well be under attack. We were scared of that as well. So we were telling our
yeah,
friends also that just grab anything that you get. A rod is fine, even hot boiling water. If you get, you just attack them. Like anything that is feasible, that's easily accessible to you, just be ready with it and be very alert. And I was just constantly asking my friends, are you okay, are you okay? So like the entire night, I think nobody, 15th August is
nobody
the day
slept.
we, yeah, it's supposed to be the Independence Day for the country, right? I think in the history of our nation, no doctor or students would have spent being in fear, in fear of
Yeah.
being attacked, or if, like whether we will be living the next moment and will we be under attack the very next moment. I don't think so it has happened in our
I
history.
was up. I was up all night that night, along with my team, getting
Hmm.
frantic calls from doctors I did not know, saying, "Can you please help us? Can you please put our story out?" So I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
Before I give the last words to Dr. Sabharwala and Dr. Nabanita, I just want to ask you. We learned from the Supreme Court hearings that a number of doctors, in particular women, have left RG Court. Their parents have called them back. They've said, "Come home." This could be the end of the medical dream for some women if their families do not consent. And unfortunately, young women still need the consent of their families, the financial support of their families. Have you, Dr. Leah, ever thought of, after what's happened, of not being a doctor?
um to be honest, I do love medicine, I do love the clinics very much. So as of now, I don't want to leave it. But if the situation doesn't get better, then yes, it did cross my mind that maybe I can do MBA, or maybe I can change careers as well. But to be honest, none of the doctors are here because they are here because they love their job. Let's be very clear with it. They are doing it because they really love medicine, they really love what they are doing. So
Yeah,
to think of such a drastic thing like a career change in our profession is very big step, because you've already first of all invested so many years in learning something that you actually love.
yeah.
It's not that I want to leave medicine because I don't love medicine or whatever. The fear is the thing that I will not be safe, I might not come back home. That is the driving force behind this thought. It's
I mean,
not.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to process that sentence. I might not come home from work. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yes.
I want to give last comments, Dr. Nabanita, briefly, and then I'll ask Dr. Sabharwal to sum this up for us. The doctors' associations have decided to continue their protests. A lot of people might say, why are you still doing that? The Chief Justice has personally appealed. What are you looking for? I know that there is a pending legislation that doctors want passed. If you can come in, and then I'll give Dr. Sabharwal the closing word. Nabanita, please.
The protests cannot die at this moment, because though we are very grateful to our Chief Justice, Honorable Chief Justice, he has shown a lot of sympathy for the doctors, but a lot needs to be done on the ground. I mean, it is just the beginning. So we need to see some actual changes. And most importantly, what is happening to the perpetrators of that heinous crime that night on 9th of August at RG Kar? Are we getting to the bottom of it finally or not? Because without knowing that the perpetrators of that heinous crime are punished, why should the doctors get back to the cancelling of the protest? It's not possible. And secondly, now there's a task force that is going to look into the matters of doctor safety across the country. Now we need to see what the task force does, and it's not going to happen overnight. It'll all take time. And if we just let go, just become complacent, just get back to our lives as usual, then things will not move. Because let me tell you, if you go into any medical college, any hospital, the state run, the government hospitals I'm talking about, especially in the capital here, and you look into the conditions, how the doctors are working there, the junior doctors, especially the women doctors don't have special rooms also. The toilets, if you go into, and if you do a little audit of that, you will know the pathetic condition in the capital of this country, and then you'll understand where the country as a whole is standing there. So we cannot just go back now.
Yeah, Dr. Sabharwal, I'll give you the last word. And when Dr. Nabanita talks about justice for the victim of rape and murder in RG Court, there is also serious concerns about how forensics may never find the evidence that is needed. The body was burnt. The father has said that it was burnt in haste, that he was too shocked to make an informed decision. There are concerns about other evidence having been tampered with. We simply don't know. And there are also questions about why the postmortem was done at the very same place where this doctor was murdered and raped. Can the integrity of the postmortem be trusted? With all of these mounting questions, Dr. Sabharwal, if you had to explain to people at large who are not from the medical community why doctors are still protesting, what would be your last word?
So definitely, I would again start with thanking the CJI. I mean, he came in and thanks to the Chief Justice of India. But I would absolutely, in one word, first say that we are devastated. We are still devastated. And the only thing which can, there can be some repair of the whole thing is we are looking for the fast track justice. We can't just leave it in mid because we've been, told that everything will happen. Because if you remember, 1,600 doctors died in COVID. And everybody was like, they made us God. And then immediately what happened after 3 months? So it's very short term, right? So we have to go till the end, number one. Number two, the security and safety of the RDAs who are sitting on roads, they are my concern. They are our concern. The different associations, the FIMA, the FODA, the IMAJD, and there's so many youngsters. Even now, I am in Ashton and the DMA. So, and that we have to be very sure that is happening. And number three, last but not the least, is CPA. That is the Central Protection Act. That is the must for us. And we have to fight for that because it just says very simply that if the doctor faces violence, if there's a grievous injury, we need to be sure about a central legislation because that will only change the whole thing. And the other thing is, it cannot be like, okay, it is like we understand that people are with us, but we definitely want to see it happen. So that is important. So that's why we are still there. We are holding the fort. Absolutely.
Well, it's going to be a critical day in the Supreme Court on Thursday when the CBI actually gets back with its status report. The West Bengal government gets back with its status report, and we'll have to see what happens after that. Thank you so much to Dr. Vipender Sabharwal, coming from 5 generations of doctors, 154 doctors, Dr. Nabanita Chatterjee, a laparoscopic surgeon, wondering today what lies ahead for the next generation of doctors, and Dr. Leah Bhaumik, representing that next generation, sharing with us how much she has cried and feared for not just her life, but for the life of her friends. No young woman in any profession should have to go through that. But doctors who are tasked with saving the lives of others, I just want to end with the thought that through all of this, medical services at RG Court continued. The doctors who were under attack continued to work, and that is extraordinary. So salutes to the doctors who've been on the streets protesting. Thank you very much to all 3 of you, and we hope that these protests lead to institutional change. Thank you for talking to us, and take care. Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.